I've made some real friends in World of Warcraft, people that I still talk to today, and people that I met years ago. I've been playing this game since 2007, and it's honestly been a large chunk of my life, and I've spent more time than I'd like to admit in this game. But because of that, I can feel when something about this game changes, and it's felt quite different for a long time. But one thing has become very clear to me now. World of Warcraft feels like a single player game. I was halfway through planning this video when I saw this.
Even with Chris Metzen, we talk about, sometimes he's like, man, I wish we hadn't called it Warcraft. It sounds kind of intimidating.
This made my feelings towards WoW make sense. That feeling of pointlessness, that lack of enthusiasm to even play. It used to feel worthwhile. The game used to have weight. We're not playing a war game anymore. We're playing a safe space that has orcs in it. My experiences with retail WoW seem to be the same no matter which expansion comes out these days. When I enter a dungeon, no one says anything, and if I choose to say hi, no one replies. Someone out of the blue might say hello in the chat, I'll respond and say hello, and then it's dead silence. You finish the dungeon, and everyone goes their separate ways. And sometimes I'll even linger at the end of the dungeon, hoping that someone, like the leader, is going to click find game, and at least I know we did that dungeon quickly, maybe the next one we could do efficiently together. And then everyone disappears, and it's just me left alone in the dungeon, and I have to teleport out and search again on my own. And the thing is, the developers know this, because in the War Within they brought in delves, and these were smaller scale dungeons that you could do solo or with a small group of friends. And while these dungeons can be a little bit of fun to go through, I can't help but feel just a little bit empty after having done them. It just doesn't feel the same as doing a dungeon with 5 people. When I walk through the main cities of the expansions, for example the city within War Within or the one that was in Shadowlands, they're often dead. You might find the odd person walking around, but honestly they're indistinguishable from NPCs. They just have a little name above their head to tell you that it's a player. So while from the outside the city looks busy, socially it feels dead. The only thing that's popping off in chat is advertisements for booths in dungeons or whatever they're trying to sell you now. These systems work smoothly though. If I press find dungeon, I get a dungeon. But somewhere along using these systems, that connection is dead. I'm just playing a single player game with an online connection. And let's take it back to classic World of Warcraft. Yes, it is slower. Yes, it can be annoying at times. When I want to form a group, I have to go and find people. I have to whisper people. Sometimes I may not even be able to find a tank. So I press who, I search up warriors or paladins, whoever even has the smallest inkling that they could tank, and I whisper everyone on the list. And sometimes someone might say yes, and then we've got a dungeon running. And when you're looking at dungeons like Moradin, Scarlet Monastery, or even Shadowfang Keep, these dungeons are really far out of the way and they take time to travel to. So that means you have to commit to this experience, and you're kind of relying on those people in your group to be committed to. One of the most painful parts is you're halfway up travelling towards the dungeon, and then someone puts in chat, I've got to go, or there's an emergency, and you know deep inside they just want to bail on the experience. They'll use any old excuse. My dog's hungry, so my nan's desperately crying at me over the phone, and then they just disappear, go offline. Or even those people who just silently Alt F4, and then eventually you realise the bloody tank's offline and we need to find a new one. It takes so much extra time to fill that spot. But when it does actually work, when you find those people that stick around to be part of that dungeon experience, sometimes at the end I'll even add them. Can I add you? You were a good tank. I'd love to add you to my list and we could do dungeons in the future. That friction of trying to form that group, get to that dungeon, it creates friendships. One of my favourite parts of Classic is when you do find that one person you want to keep doing dungeons with. Oftentimes I'll check my friends list and see, how's that person doing? Oh, we're kind of in the same level range. Perhaps we could do another dungeon together. And let's talk about levelling. Levelling in general was slower on Classic. Everything took that extra step. You were more at risk of dying. It was of great benefit to have someone with you to heal you so you could keep killing those mobs. But in retail, everyone's been homogenized. You can heal yourself. You can do everything on your own. I don't even remember needing a fellow to help me on an elite quest. Whereas in Classic WoW, You got to have a team to do an elite quest. But most of the time in retail, it feels sparse. When I make a new alt, there's no one around. There's a very small chance I'll even see someone. And ever since they introduced the time walking where you can choose any era of WoW to level up a character, those leveling zones, I see nobody around. In retail, you level so much quicker too. And not just that, but the areas scale with you. So even if you get that level and it feels like you've made a little bit of progress, all the mobs around you are suddenly more powerful and your gear is now more useless. In Classic, even when I'm playing solo, perhaps I'm leveling an alt, I still see the odd person out in the world. And even when I do stop off to enter the city, perhaps I'm going to the auction house in Stormwind, there's at least a few people in Stormwind, even on a dead server. And it makes me feel just a little bit more connected to the world. And if we're talking about questing, in retail, as long as you tag the mob, you get the reward for killing that mob. You don't even need to be part of a group. Whereas in Classic, if someone turns up and I'm killing Defias in Westfall, I'm going to invite that person to my group so we can share the quest rewards, so they can get progress towards their quest, and I can too. And then at the end, even just a little cheers for that, have a good day. When they leave, some people do just leave and not say anything, but to be honest, most people will be like, thanks for the group. In retail, you don't even need to group. But how did retail end up in this state where it's so different to Classic? Well, the players asked for it.
Everything you're seeing is a result of listening and observing.
We wanted to get into dungeons with less friction, so we got the Dungeon Finder. We wanted to be able to travel all around the world, so we got portal hubs like in Stormwind. We wanted to get to endgame quicker, so we could do raids and gear up our characters. So we got faster leveling. See, the thing is, Blizzard actually gave us exactly what we wanted. I wanted more purple gear. I wanted that epic gear on my character. And now it's raining purples. The result of this is less annoyance. There is less friction in the game. But because of that, it's less rewarding. And somehow through these changes, we've optimized the connection out of the game. There's no need for us to play and party up with other people. But Blizzard delivered exactly like they said they would. We wanted things to be quicker, and they made it quicker. The only time World of Warcraft feels alive these days is when there's a new expansion. For instance, in retail, when that new expansion drops, people come back. I come back, but it only ends up lasting a week or two, and then I want to unsub again, or maybe return to Classic. And Classic gets all of its players back when there's something new as well, when there was Season of Discovery, when there's a TBC anniversary server. Whatever's new brings everyone back. The story of retail gets less and less interesting with every expansion too. Remember when the Jailer was announced and it turned out that he was the one behind Arthas? Arthas was just his pawn. And you had this jailer with his nipples out there. How am I supposed to take this game seriously? And when I was leveling in the War Within and it would start playing a cutscene, it just felt like a Disneyfied version of what I used to play. And honestly, I did not care what the hell was happening in these cutscenes. It feels like World of Warcraft has been Disneyfied in the same way that Star Wars has. There's just constant releases and it feels disappointing every time. And what I'd really love for WoW to have is the Andor treatment. Andor was a series within Star Wars that took a more mature approach. I'd even love World of Warcraft to have its own Rogue One Darth Vader scene. I remember when it got to the end of Rogue One and we saw Darth Vader, and he actually was kind of scary. He comes down the corridor, slashing everyone down, and I honestly got so pumped. I was like, yes! This is what I want. I want a whole film of this. World of Warcraft has lost all of that. It feels like I'm watching kids' TV. But if there was a moment, say Arthas came down the corridor and started slashing all the Stormwind guards, I know wouldn't fit in with the story, but the villain, whoever's the villain, if it was actually scary and imposing, I'd probably be all in. This is where the parallels with Star Wars and WoW is. I'm a huge fan of both, and I feel disconnected from both at this point, but they're one mature release away from me feeling invested again. See, once everyone's unsubbed from WoW because now it's got boring and perhaps I'm still playing Classic, I often linger for a month or two, because World of Warcraft used to feel like the game I wanted to play, my forever game. I loved the progression of classic WoW and that RPG leveling. But then once all your friends have gone, it starts to feel hollow. And there's only so long I can play retail on my own where I get to the point of feeling that this is pointless and I feel a bit lonely playing it. So I'm going to unsubscribe. The game feels so polite and safe these days that when I saw comments calling it World of Peacecraft, it felt so apt. I remember when they were going back into WoW Classic and there was pictures of ladies, like paintings within, I think it was in the monastery in Eastern Plaguelands, and then they covered them up. They replaced women with bowls of fruit. You've got body type 1 and 2. It feels so sanitized and it feels a bit icky to play it. I'm here wanting my own Darth Vader killing everyone scene and they're replacing the women with fruit. Of course I'm not going to be invested in this game. And I think many of us feel this way because the demographic of WoW is mostly people who are over 30 years old. They're mostly men. And what do we want? We want something that is a bit more mature. We're not 10 wanting to watch a Disney film. The Disneyfication of World of Warcraft has made everything feel so passive and clean, and I hate it, and it feels disgusting to play, and it feels completely hollow. It feels disgusting. That's It feels disgusting. That's quite a quite intense word to say. It's not disgusting, but it does make me feel just a bit repulsed by it. Repulsed? Even that's quite an intense word. I like WoW, but not this version of WoW. It feels like there's honestly a lack of testosterone in the game now. When I saw those scenes like Darth Vader, stripping people down with the lightsaber, I felt pumped. I wanted to go to the gym. I wanted to lift some weights. I felt, it got my man juices going. Do you know what I mean? It inspired me as a bloke to want to go, yes! And I get none of that from WoW, and I wish I did. When I subscribe to WoW, it's not for retail. I may end up trying it, but I'm playing it for classic WoW. I miss what the game used to feel like, and classic WoW still has some of those feelings there. I miss when progression felt like it actually mattered. The blandness of retail just makes it feel so pointless. Even if I had a few friends who still played the game, I'd probably stick around and play it a lot longer. But most of my friends don't want to come back, and to be honest, I don't really want to come back either. There is something deep inside of me that gets this feeling I want to keep playing WoW, but not in the current state that it's in. But I feel this experience with WoW and retail can mirror what's happening in real life too. How often have you opted to use the self-service checkout at the supermarket instead of the normal checkout because you just don't really feel like talking to anyone? Have you ordered food instead of going out to eat because you just want to avoid the social interaction? And this is one I know a lot of you do, including myself. If someone phones you, you intentionally don't answer the phone, and maybe you message them back and say, what's up? So WoW may feel lonely because we've removed that friction from the game. But have we done that to our real lives too?
We want everybody to play World of Warcraft.
It's game design, but it's also social design, how we meet a new generation where they are.
If they want everyone to play the game, then they're designing it for no one. I work with young adults, and when I mention to them that I play World of Warcraft, oftentimes they'll immediately change the subject and have literally zero comments on it because World of Warcraft is not on their radar. They don't care about this game. World of Warcraft is a game for dads at this point, for old men like me and probably you.
Everything you're seeing is a result of listening and observing.
If they are just reflecting our behaviour, what does that say about us? We're so addicted to convenience in our real lives, skipping talking to anyone, using the self-checkout, getting the food delivered to our houses, that without realising, we've demanded Blizzard change World of Warcraft into a solo experience. So maybe World of Peacecraft isn't Blizzard's fault. It might just be a reflection of how soft and isolated that we've become. Honestly, I spent years in that lonely cycle between my late teens and throughout my 20s. I was ordering food to the house. I was playing WoW to avoid the friction of my own life, thinking about my own problems. I wasn't taking the phone calls. In fact, I still feel that to this day. If someone phones me, I get that feeling inside my stomach. Why is someone phoning me? I always went to that self-checkout in the supermarket. But what I've learnt is when I experience that feeling of friction and I push past it, it's one of the most rewarding feelings. When I do get that sense of loneliness and I make myself go to the gym and perhaps I talk to someone I've never talked to before, it gives me that feeling of community. When I feel disconnected from the world and I make myself go walk into town and be surrounded by people, it makes me feel like I'm a human again and part of society. When I'm disconnected for too long, I can start to feel resentful and unhappy and like I'm not really achieving anything in life. And WoW used to give me the same feeling that the gym used to give me. And Classic did give me that feeling again, a place of connection and a place to actually be part of society. But now, in particularly in retail, I think we've traded that connection for convenience. So I'll leave you with this. When was the last time you made a friend in an online game? If you can't remember, maybe it's time to ask ourselves why we're afraid of a little bit of war in our Warcraft. Thank you so much to the YouTube channel members and the Patreon members, and if you'd like to hear more from me, there's 2 videos right here. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.